If you're interested in learning more about BetAngel, its tools and the opportunities they present, then why not visit betangel.com today and download a free trial. So I did say I would do a couple of tennis videos and stuff, and I thought this particular, if you've watched the other videos that I've done, this particular trade should interest you, and in terms of the method and process that I was looking for when I was doing this trade. So I was trading the Nadal v Raonic match today. I was out first thing this morning. My daughter had to get her braces removed, so I missed the very, very early part of the match. But by the time I had arrived, Nadal had basically taken the first set. It was fairly even for a little while. Nadal gets the break and takes the first set. So I arrive at that point and have a look at how the match is progressing. Now, from that particular point, what happened was the second set was going with serve, and generally it was quite a tight second set. Now, when you look at things like this, if you're looking at what a player is thinking, if you go 2 sets to love down, that's obviously a long way to come back. But if you can get the second set, then you're obviously back to square one, and you know, who knows what could happen from there. So there's quite a big incentive to win that second set. And you know, the match is going from one side to the other, from one side to the other. So when that's occurring, I quite like to get involved later on in the set, because typically the incentive to go for a break increases at that particular point within the set. So I've got some notes here, and we'll put some graphics up on the screen. But as we got into the latter part of the set, what you can actually see on the set matrix on Tennis Trader is, if we actually looked at Nadal serving, he was at 135, and if Raonic was serving first in the set, so he was basically go up to 4-3, Nadal would serve to get to go back to level scores. So if it would be 3-2, 3-all, 4-3, 4-all, 5-4, 5-4, 5-all, and so on and so forth. And when you look at that, this was presenting an opportunity, because the odds on Nadal having won the first set were quite low anyway. So if Nadal broke, then it would be, the odds would come down about 15%. But if Raonic broke, then the odds would go out by about 30 points, 30% in this particular example. So when you look at that, you're sort of thinking 15 v 30, Raonic is serving first, he's going to be the one that has the opportunity to probably break. Raonic has a big serve, and if he can complete his service game without too much hassle, as we progress later and later in the set, he's probably going to take more and more chances to try and get a break against Nadal. So with that particular setup, you know, that was something that was of interest. And then if we look at the game matrix, you'll see from the game matrix how that would play out as the game actually progressed. So basically, if Nadal was basically progressing and looking like he could actually win this, his odds may contract a little. But if Raonic actually got a point or two, then you would actually see the odds shift significantly in his favour, because especially towards the end of the set, and especially at 5-4 when Raonic had just served out, the chance of Raonic winning that set was going to improve. So what do you think Raonic was going to do? Was he going to sit there and play safe, or was he going to try and get a couple of those little shots in and you know, try something a bit more adventurous in the hope of breaking Nadal? So yeah, if you look at the game matrix, you'll notice that the middle line is basically if the score is even during the game. The line below that is if Raonic is a point up. The line below that is if he's 2 points up, and so on and so forth. So you can get an idea of where the odds would move. So if it was love 40, it would be 161 from 139. Those are the odds that Nadal would drift. He'd go from 139 to 160. And you can see, even if he's just a point ahead, there'll be a bit of a shift, and if he's 2 points ahead, there'll be a decent shift. And you know, if he's got a chance to break, it'll be fairly significant. So the entry point naturally was to lay Nadal at that particular point in the match. When he's serving, Raonic has a chance to win the set, and Raonic is going to go for a couple of, you know, decent shots. So we got in the market at about sort of 140. We got into the market, and the first point that occurred within that game went to Raonic. So you can see the odds shifted from our entry point to about 146. So at that particular point you could have cashed out some or all of your trade if you wanted to, but of course our play on this particular trade was really for Raonic to look like he could potentially break Nadal. And like I've said in other videos before, you don't have to wait for the break, you can actually get out before then, because if there's 2 points for the receiver against serve, then you'll see a significant shift in the market anyway. So anyhow, Raonic gets the next point as well. I think, if my memory serves me correctly from this morning, that Nadal double faulted. So all of a sudden the odds have shifted to 154. So you can see we're well into profit now. And again, you know, you can take all or some of that. And as we progressed through, we ended up with the scoreline of 1540. Nadal wins the next point, Raonic wins the point after that. Suddenly it's 1540 and Raonic is 1 point away from winning the set, and Nadal is desperate to hold on to that game, obviously, and not lose the set. So there are a number of stats available, loads of them on the internet. You can even get them on the ATP Tour website that show you how players perform under pressure or at break points. There's some great stats out there in tennis. Tennis is full of them. And there's a dramatic difference between one player and another in terms of how they play when they reach that particular point. I've done some fantastic work on how a player behaves at certain scorelines. I will put up the video probably at some point. I may, because we're coming to the end of the Australian Open, it may not be appropriate now, but maybe I'll do it on the next Grand Slam or at some other point. But it's very insightful in terms of what I discovered. But anyway, back to this match. What actually happened then at 1540, we can see on Tennis Trader in the game matrix that it said the price would go to 161, and sure enough, that's what price it reached within the actual market itself. So at that point, it's worth us cashing out because, you know, Raonic could go on and win it, but we know that the odds aren't going to move that much more. And whether you put in part or all of your trade, that makes for a sensible exit point, because the chance of closing out a game against serve is, you know, there's still a chance that Nadal will come back into the match at this particular point, which was exactly what he did. He managed to pull it back to deuce and eventually managed to win the game by advantage. So, you know, he was when at 1540. I think tennis scoring is always deceptive, but if you think about it, it's only, you know, 30-40 and then deuce. It's only 2 points, and if you're serving and you've got a half decent serve, then you would probably fancy your chances of pulling that off, which is exactly what Nadal did. He brought the back to deuce, and then if you look at the ladder again, you'll see that his odds have gone all the way back down to pretty much where they've started. But we've benefited from that little bit of fluctuation, that volatility that occurred at that particular point, and ended up with a decent result. If you look at the Betfair screenshot that you can see here, that shows you that trade in lovely detail. But the interesting thing about this is that, of course, you could do it again and again as the match progresses, but you're obviously going to have to make that judgment as the match progresses. And when Raonic started the third set, you could see that he was completely deflated, and in fact Nadal was totally fired up. If you watch Nadal at the end of that match, you could see he was really, you know, up for that, and it meant a huge amount for him. So you know, by watching a match, you'll be able to get a feel for how a player is performing. And Raonic took a trainer timeout, and you could just see that the energy was no longer there. And yeah, he could have found a way back in, but you could have used some of that profit to exploit that. But it looked fairly clear early in the third that really wasn't going to happen. But okay, you know, so we did that trade, that worked out fine. What would have happened if it had gone the other way? Well, you would have taken a loss, because what you're saying here is you're not saying that is definitely going to happen or whatever. You're just saying that, you know, there's a chance that this could happen at this point, and if that does happen, the market's going to reach this point, which you can see on Tennis Trader. You know, it reached exactly the point that we were looking for. Now, if it had gone the other way, we would have lost a little bit. So your balance, your expectancy in this type of trade is saying, how many times do I get this right versus how many times do I get it wrong, and am I in the market at the right time for the right reason? But based upon previous videos that I've done, I thought that may just top and tail a little bit of stuff for you on how I trade tennis. You may have a different way of trading, you may have seen other people explain it differently, but that is how I trade it. I'm looking for an opportunity to get in the match at a particular point. I'm looking for that break or the break potential, and my payoff is basically getting that right more often than I get it wrong, but also in the right proportion as well, which is why I pick certain points in the match where the downside, if I get it wrong, is fairly limited, but the upside is fairly decent. But anyway, there's a summary of the trade that I did this morning. It's very similar to I did two of these, or talked through two of these trades on Monday when we had people in the office as well. And all you're looking for is that key point within the match where the risk and reward looks about right, and there's an incentive for that situation to occur. But anyway, I hope that gave you a bit more insight.